Okay. Well, welcome, Tamara. I am very excited to have you with us today. It's Tamera Kraft, who I'm not sure how you have time to eat dinner with all of the stuff that you've got on your plate. You're an author, you've been a children's pastor. You decided at some point to put your toe into being a publisher. Um, and I thought that my followers would find that really interesting. So I appreciate you taking the time to spend the evening with me for a little bit.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to this.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so as I said, you've had a wide and varied career, including being a children's pastor for over 20 years and writing children's church curriculum. Um, how did you make the jump from that into being an author of historic fiction?
Well, I've been asked that a lot. People are thinking, why didn't I write children's fiction since I've been a children's pastor for so long? Things like that. But it really wasn't a big jump. I've always loved to write. When I was young, I wrote fiction, and I've always loved history. Then, when I was raising children and working as a full time children's pastor, I wrote children's church curriculum because that's all I had time to write.
Right, right.
Well, when I became a children's evangelist and my children grew up and got married and had families of their own, then I had time to write fiction again. And historical fiction is really a good fit for me because I've always loved American history. And when I read about events in history, I always wonder what the stories are of the ordinary people that have lived through those events.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's kind of how I dropped into it. School was boring with history, but when I ended up in Williamsburg, there were what do you call it? The reenactors, and they started telling the stories. They would pretend to be a person, and that's when it came alive.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
know what you mean about the stories. Yeah, for sure. Well,
Right.
then tell me about your decision to create Mount Zion Ridge Press and a little bit about that journey.
Well, I own the company with my partner, Michelle Levine, and we used to both live close together in Ohio. And we would carpool every month to ACFW Ohio meetings, which were about 2.5, 3 hours away. And we'd brainstorm our novels. And we'd also talk about publishing and the state of publishing and how large publishing companies don't give small or newer authors a chance, and some authors like to write in more than one genre and they don't like that, and some fiction just doesn't quite fit their formula, and just different things. And we talked about, oh, if we had a publishing company, this is the way we do it. And, we all know we can do everything better than the person doing it. So at one point, we both had the same publisher. And in 2018, that publisher sent us both an email that they were closing their doors and taking all of our books off the market.
Oh,
Well, this is
ouch.
kind of devastating because Michelle and I both had a book that had just gone on the market.
Oh,
And
how awful.
yeah, and mine was the first in a series, a 3 book series, which publishers don't want the second, or don't want a series when the first book had already been published.
Right.
And so we called each other and we're both like, oh, all our books are off. What are we going to do? And then we realized that God had been using that time when we were going back and forth from Ohio, planning how we would do a publishing company to draw us to the conclusion that now it's time.
Okay.
And so it was kind of like a God thing. We never really expected to start a publishing company, but at that moment we knew we were supposed to. So
Sure. Well, you had already had all those strategic planning sessions,
that's true.
right? Oh, very cool. Well, tell me then, you've alluded, I think, a little bit to it, but tell me what makes Mount Zion Ridge Press different from other publishers.
Well, first, we're a Christian publisher, which
Mhm.
means we don't shy away from Christian fiction and nonfiction. We publish nonfiction that goes deep into scriptural truths. We don't have a one size fits all that will please everybody. Uh, we don't always have the same denomination publish it, but certain truths are universal for the or should be for Christian churches.
Yes, sure.
And as long as they hear that, we allow them to dig deep into the scriptures. And as far as fiction, we wanted fiction that other publishing companies weren't publishing, because although it was really good, it didn't fit their pattern.
Sure.
So, for instance, a lot of publishing companies that are call themselves Christian publishing companies are going more for the clean reads and toning down the Christian influences, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. It's just we wanted to do something a little different, and we also wanted a place where new authors could have a chance if their fiction or nonfiction was ready to be published. And so we're fairly small and we have a hands on approach, and we are the place that is a friendly place for those people to go. In fact, our tagline is books off the beaten path.
Very cool. Very cool. And I definitely think there's a market for that. There is a group of readers who are looking for something that, I hesitate to use the word formulaic, because I think sometimes that has negative connotations. Hallmark is formulaic. You know what you're getting when you sign up for it. And I think there's a place for that. But I think there is a group of readers who want something other than that. So that's great for you to author that.
Yes, there's nothing wrong with formula that works. There's nothing wrong with having a set guideline with your publishing company, but we wanted to do something a little bit different.
Sure, sure. Very, very exciting. Well, then what's a typical day for you as a publisher?
That's
Uh,
a good question. It depends. It depends on the time of the month, because certain times of the month are much more crunch time.
uh,
And some days are completely booked, and other days I have a lot more leeway. But I create the covers for almost all of the books at Mount Zion Ridge Press, and we are in children's books now, and so I format the picture books. So if we have a picture book coming out and two book covers to make, that month's a little busier than other months.
sure,
Uh, I also review about half the submissions we receive, and I upload books and keep up with the website and create contracts, have Zoom meetings with new authors, a million other details.
sure,
Uh, but the first thing I do every day is look at my email and see if there's anything I really need to take care of first. And then I plow through my to do lists and appointments. But one thing I do is I set boundaries. I've made a decision that I do not work on weekends. I don't even check my Mount Zion email on weekends. And also, when I am done for the day, I close my computer and I'm done for the day. So there are times when I have to work longer days because there's a lot more that is more of a deadline that I have.
sure,
But my grandchildren are over and I need to spend time with my grandchildren, then that gets put on hold. You know, the company.
sure. Well, and good for you for setting those boundaries, because I think when you are self-employed, it's very challenging to do that. Um, and for a lot of reasons. And so good for you for doing that.
Well, at first, it overwhelmed me. I was always doing something for the company, and I realized that I needed to set boundaries for my own sanity. I mean, I want time to write also.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And you risk burning
Thing.
yourself out. Yeah.
So I have certain times I work on company business, and the other times I don't unless an emergency comes up.
Yeah. Good for you. For you. Um, so I noticed that you've got some bilingual books in your catalog. So how do authors decide if they should have their works published in another language?
Well, actually, we decide for them.
Perfect. One less decision for the author.
Yes. We have a marketing director who is bilingual.
Oh, great.
She, she is awesome, and she has a sister who edits bilingual things. So uh, she pretty much takes care of all of our bilingual work. But at the moment, because we just went into children's books within the last year, year and a half,
Mhm.
we only do bilingual for picture books, children's picture books. We have them both in English and Spanish in the same book. At some point, we may want to branch out, but there's only so much that our translator can do as one person. And
Oh,
she,
sure. And yeah, a novella, no, that would take forever.
right. And so for the moment, that's what we're doing. We're dipping our toe in with the children's picture book market, and we'll see how it goes from there.
Oh, that's exciting. Very exciting. Yeah. Uh, okay, so Mount Zion Ridge Press also conducts an online writers conference, which I think is a fantastic way to support the writing community. Tell us about that and why writers should attend.
Well, our conference is a little different than most online conferences. First of all, by making it online, we have top name speakers who teach workshops on fiction, nonfiction, children's books, marketing, career. Some of the speakers we've had in the I'm sorry, some of the speakers we've had in the past are people like Jim Rubart, Thomas Umstead, Stephen James, uh, Bob Hotzler, uh,
Wow, those are big names. Yeah.
Alan Arnold, and Rachel Hawk. So we have had some really good speakers at our conference. And as long as we keep it online, we can keep doing that because it doesn't cost as much to book them and we don't have to pay for their travel expense and their hotels.
Sure, and they can, for lack of a better word, squeeze that into a schedule. I mean, versus arranging for a 3-day trip to some conference, they could say, sure, I can do a thing between, X and Y and fit you in.
Exactly. Well, that's the first benefit. But another benefit is we bake in networking into our conferences. Most people, when they go to an online conference, they sit and they watch the speaker. It's like more like a webinar. And if they do have any time for the to network with other authors, it's very structured and very hands-on, and they can do it between this time and this time, and you know
Yeah,
room one and you go to room two, even if you want to talk to the person in room two, that kind of thing.
sure, sure.
And we at the beginning, we were going to have an in-person conference, and our first conference was in 2020. Well, you know how that.
Ah, that which shall not be named.
Yes. So we changed very fast. We pivoted, and we still wanted the in-person feeling to the conference. We still wanted people to be able to network with each other. And we ended up having brainstorming lunches and allowing participants to ask questions and make suggestions, not just in the comment box, but also if they want, they can actually speak. Things like that. And get to know new friends. And it's worked really well. In fact, we've gotten a lot of compliments, and we've created a tagline for our conference based on somebody who was telling us what they loved about the conference. And so we say the conference is an online conference with an in person experience.
Wow. Yeah, that's fascinating to add that networking aspect. Because you're
Yeah,
right, when it's an online conference, you just pop into a class and it's like a webinar and then you pop out to the next one.
right. And I think
That's
that's what makes our conference different than most online conferences. And it also gives people who can't go to an in person conference for whatever reason an ability to network with other authors and have
sure.
that aspect of a conference.
And what time of year is that typically held?
It's always held in May. This year it's the first week of May. It's May 1st through the 3rd.
Okay.
So if you go to our website, www.mountzionridgepress.com, you can click on the conference tab and it will take you right to the website.
Okay, great. Well, that's exciting.
Yes.
All right, so let's change gears a little bit. So you're a publisher, you do a lot of the technical aspect of publishing. How are you able to turn off that side of your brain when it's time for you to sit down and be a fiction writer?
I can't.
Oh,
But what's funny is before I was a publisher, I couldn't do that. Uh, as I'm writing, I want to fix this part, and that just gnaws at me till I go back to fix it. That's just the way I write. I've tried to turn it off. It doesn't work with me.
okay. Well, so you've figured out how to make it work then. Okay.
So
Okay.
my creative juices work best when I go back and fix the mistake and then go on, and it it helps me know where to go from there, because
Sure.
the
Okay.
mistakes back there, it can divert the whole novel.
Sure.
Takes me
Sure.
longer to write, a lot longer, but when it comes to editing time, I don't have to spend a lot of time editing.
And that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. So you're a discovery writer versus an outliner?
I'm kind of a mixture.
Okay.
Definitely don't write a major outline, but I do write down some plot points that I want to put in there, and what the lie they believe is, and what the conflict is, and that kind of thing.
Sure.
And um, I go ahead and write, and sometimes it'll go along the lines of my plot points, and sometimes it'll go in a completely different. Uh,
Oh, those characters wandering off the page again.
yes, those characters just won't do what they're told.
I know. Oh, I know. I hate that. Okay, so talk to me about what writers should know about approaching a publishing company and working with a traditional publisher.
All right, first and foremost, they need to follow the guidelines on the website to a letter. Publishers know that when you don't follow the guidelines at all, that you're going to be hard to work with and you're not going to follow directions. And even if you have the most wonderful novel in the world, those people, we don't want to work with them.
No, 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 I have a full-time job outside the house. I know exactly what you're talking about. Sure, sure.
it's just it's just hard to work with people who don't follow directions. We've had people who have sent poetry books in PDFs. First of all, we ask for a query first. Second, we don't do poetry, and third, we want attached Word documents. And if they read the website, they would have known that.
Sure, sure.
Things like that. It's just absolutely crazy what people send us. They're like, but I'm so brilliant and my work is so brilliant that I know you'll want to publish it anyway, even though it doesn't fit your guidelines.
Right. You'll have to change your entire method of operating for my book.
That's right. That doesn't happen. So, first of all, that. Also, I would recommend that the writer manage their expectations. Some publishers are more lenient than others, but don't plan to create your own cover and then have the publisher put a stamp on it that this, or tell the publisher exactly what you want for your cover. It's fine to give them ideas of what you like if they want those ideas, but don't try to make the cover for the publisher, because truthfully, different genres, you really need different types of covers for them. For instance, if you're writing a cozy mystery, it's going to be more of an animated cover. If you're going to have romance, usually it will have people on the cover.
Right, right. Yeah,
So the publisher knows what kind of cover your novel needs. Also, when the publisher or when the editor edits your book, don't expect them to not change anything or to change very little, because they are going to go through it with a fine tooth comb. and they are trying to make it better. Just understand most publishers want your book to be the best it can be, and you just got to put your expectations aside at times. Share your concerns if you have them. Publishers usually don't bite your head off if you do that in a nice way, but don't be demanding and difficult.
Okay, excellent, excellent. People, I think it's more involved than that in working, but I think you've hit it on the head. Like you say, first of all, follow directions and
Yeah.
then managing expectations. Good for you. And so you are accepting submissions at this time, correct?
Yes, we are. But we are over a year out on our book release timeline. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult to be accepted by us than it would have been a couple of years ago when we were trying to fill up our year.
Sure, sure,
Well, because we're growing. But that doesn't mean we won't accept your manuscript.
sure.
It
Okay,
means the competition will be a little,
sure. Okay, well, that's good news.
but
So is there anything else you'd like the listeners to know about you or your books or your publishing arm?
okay. Well, first of all, if for the writers who are listening, if you're trying to get that first book published, keep working on perfecting your craft. Our conference is a great way to do that, but there are workshops and conferences and books where you can learn more. And I'm still perfecting my craft. I've written a number of books, but I still want to get better. And that's the best way to do it. And truthfully, I thought I was great before I was published and realized as I learned more, no, I wasn't that great. I needed, and we all go through that as we're learning to write. It's a skill. I mean, there's creativity to it, but it is also a skill that needs to be learned and worked on. Uh, when you think you're ready, have someone critique it
Yeah,
because it still might need a lot more work.
right, right.
And for readers, I would like to remind them to please give the books you read some reviews. It's so
Thank you for saying that.
it is so helpful to authors. Amazon has algorithms, and they're based on not only how many books the author sells, but also how many reviews they get as well. So reviews are really an important feature. And some people who are on Goodreads and read a book a week or a couple books a week, they go by reviews to decide what they're going to read next. So
Sure,
it's so important. If you have an author you love, every time you read their book, make sure you give them a review in every place that you can. So
absolutely. And it does not have to be, I think some people think it has to be really, really long, but 2 or 3 sentences is sufficient. Certainly long is fine, but really, what did you like about the book?
I had one reviewer on one of my books who just said, I love this book. I love this author.
Isn't that fabulous? Yeah. Oh my gosh, that just warms me just thinking about it. Very
Yeah,
nice.
and I was perfectly happy with that review.
Yeah, yeah. I'd be happy with that review myself. I know, I know. Well, thank you so much for taking time tonight. I really appreciate you speaking to me. It's just been exciting for me to talk to a fellow author and somebody who's started a publishing company and making a go of it. I really appreciate your time tonight.
Well, I really enjoyed being here. So thank you, Linda, for inviting me. This is great.